challenges that lie ahead for whoever takes the reins at 10 Downing Street. I'm joined in studio now by our international affairs editor, Douglas Herbert.
Morning.
Good to have you with us this morning, Doug. So the economic situation, it's so bleak in the UK that some are calling it a once-in-a-lifetime catastrophe. Are things really that bad?
Yeah, they really are that bad. It's a calamity. I mean, you can say that right now everyone across Europe, not just Europe, the world beyond, is taking a very big hit from the war in Ukraine, the higher energy prices, the spiraling costs for just about everything, food to fuel, inflation, so on and so forth. Britain is really feeling the pain in its own very particular way. And the irony here is even though Britain isn't actually importing right now any energy from Russia, it's actually much less dependent than almost anywhere else in Europe on Russian energy. It's still very much hardwired and linked to European markets when it comes to energy prices. We have a situation, literally, let's bring up a little chart too. You know, numbers always help, stats always help to give you a little bit of a sense here. Recession is looming. And looming, it might already be here. The British economy contracted already in the second quarter of this year. And we're talking about millions of Britons who are we're talking about Britons who are making the equivalent of 4,000 to 5,000 euros a month. Okay, a month. This is middle class, some would almost say upper middle class, who are suddenly being hit by these energy prices, which are spiraling as much as you can see they're up to 80%. That is not a typo, 80%. Which means they're 4 to 5 times higher than they were at this time last year. People are going to food banks looking for aid to actually pay their energy bills, which is why energy price caps has been such a big issue in this campaign. And this is the middle class that's being hit, and even the upper middle class. So we're not talking about the poorest tiers of the population. They're already at the bottom of the barrel and really feeling the pain. Inflation double-digit by October, about 10%. The worst is that you listen to some analysts. Goldman Sachs is predicting that inflation in UK is going to be 22% by early next year. That's way above other estimates, but it's realistic in a lot of economists' views. So you have this double whammy here, the spiraling food costs, the energy prices. All of it is adding up to what a lot of people are calling an economic calamity for Britain. You said once-in-a-lifetime catastrophe. No, that is not an exaggeration.
Turning then to the race itself, front runner Liz Truss, she's been compared to Margaret Thatcher, the former Iron Lady.
Yes.
What does that mean in terms of concrete policy proposals?
Well, first of all, she is her biggest plank on her platform is lower taxes. And she owns it. She basically believes in lower taxes for the richest. And she has been asked on interview shows in Britain in the past couple of days, she says, but do you realize that the tax cuts you are proposing will benefit the richest segments of society, the ultra-rich, about 250 times more than the poorest? And is that fair? And she said, yes, that is fair. She is absolutely opposed to what she almost sees as a socialist idea of wealth redistribution. She hates that. She believes that redistribution in British society is the reason they've had such low and weak economic growth in past years. So her main policy planks, and a thing that a lot of economists are saying is the worst possible prescription for what the British economy needs, is smaller government, not just Thatcher-esque, Reagan-esque, small government, low taxes, deregulation, less government. Remember what Reagan said? Government is not the solution to our problems. Less government is the answer. She is exactly on the same wavelength with Ronald Reagan there. She wants smaller government at a time when a lot of observers, economists, aid groups, organizations in the UK say the thing that the Britons most need right now is for the government to step up to the plate the way they did with COVID, the way they did with the financial crisis back in 2008, step up to the plate and be more interventionist. And this is where she actually parts ways with Boris Johnson, who did have a sort of leveling up, as they call it, interventionist stance. He wasn't for small government, he wasn't for giant government, but he was for government playing a muscular role in times of economic duress.
What then about foreign policy? Observers, some of them are saying that if Truss wins, that won't bode well for relations with Brussels.
And that's putting it mildly. Her foreign policy right now is raising a lot of eyebrows and raising hackles here in Europe, most prominently because of her stance on renegotiating the Brexit withdrawal deal, and more specifically, the part having to do with Northern Ireland, the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol. Her wanting to sort of tear up the agreement and start to recross the T's and redot the I's and take another look at that. Brussels doesn't want to have anything to do with that. And neither, by the way, does as Washington. We know that Joe Biden thinks that, the Northern Ireland Protocol is what is going to preserve the stability of the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, essentially peace on the island, dividing Northern Ireland from the Republic of Ireland. So that is a really, really big source of concern when they look at her immediate foreign policy. U.S.-Europe relations, U.S.-UK relations. And as for that special relationship always that, Britain has been said to have with the United States, whereas Boris Johnson has really leaned heavily into that relationship, especially with Biden, even though Biden and him, there was no love lost between them at many times. He appreciated that relationship, saw the importance of it as absolutely integral to the transatlantic relationship. Liz Truss, is basically of the mind that, the U.S. is a partner, but, we have other important partners, too. And this goes in line with her sort of hard Brexit view. And she wasn't always a Brexiteer. Before the referendum, she was very much anti-Brexit, but she became an ardent, one of the staunchest Brexiteers. And now she's like, we're a sovereign Britain. We're a free and independent Britain. We could make our own allies. We don't have to depend marionette-like on the United States. That's also, as you can imagine, raising a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people just don't know where she's going to go. Is she going to remain hardline? Will power make her pragmatic? Will she go more to the center? When and presumably if her name is announced today as the next prime minister. Obviously, there could be a surprise, but as of now, that's likely.
Find out in a few hours' time. Doug Herbert, thank you so much for joining.